Can you show the OnlyFans? I don't think so. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Isn't It Crazy podcast. I'm your host, Rudy Perez. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or anywhere else you get this podcast from, just know I do have a video version of the show on YouTube. Just go on there and search up the Isn't It Crazy podcast. And while you're there, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, so second episode of 2021, and I decided to do a UFC 257 card breakdown. One of my favorite podcasts to do, only because I get to watch the fights as I do the research. And it adds a little spice to fight night. You know, I want to make sure that my research paid off and I chose the right fighters for you guys. Now, the way the card breakdowns work is I try to appease both the casual fans and the hardcore fans at the same time. I give you guys a little background on the fighters, where they're from, their records, and their disadvantages and advantages. I also tell you guys how I think the fights are going to play out. And I choose a winner, and I tell you the implications of what that win might mean to that fighter moving forward in their career. All right, let's get started. So the first fight in UFC 257 main card is Amanda Ibas with a record of 10-1 coming out of Brazil versus Marina Rodriguez with a record of 12-1-2, also coming out of Brazil. So something tells me there's more than just a win on the line, maybe bragging rights when they get back home. All right, so I also did take a bunch of notes because it's a lot of fights to watch, a lot of things to remember. So I'll be reading most of what I think off my iPad, just so I get an accurate picture and I tell you guys exactly how I feel about these fights. So on one side, you have Marina Rodriguez, who is lanky in stature, which gives her a very good range, and it helps her that she is accurate as a motherfucker. She loves to put pressure on her opponents and bring the fight to the center of the ring. One of her flaws would be that she is easily taken down, and once on the ground, she takes a lot of damage. Not good. You know, you don't want to take a lot of damage, especially in those early rounds, because it can set the tone for the rounds to come. On the other side, you have Amanda Ibas, who is a very composed fighter. Her shots are sharp and she puts pressure on her opponents. She is very good at takedowns and even better on the ground, given that she is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And coming out of Brazil, I'm sure that black belt means a lot more than if it were to come out of America. I'm not talking shit, but I'm just saying jiu-jitsu started in Brazil, and them boys don't give out black belts like they're free. You know, you can't pay for one. You got to earn those motherfuckers. So if the girl has a black belt, she's pretty good at it. All right, the game plan for these fighters is pretty clear. Both fighters like to bring the fight to the center of the ring and like to pressure their opponents. Rodriguez has the reach advantage because of her length and accuracy. She likes to clinch because of her ability to land devastating knees. But where Ribas holds a huge advantage is on the ground game. And given that Rodriguez is easily taken down, if Ribas shoots for a takedown from the start of the fight, she has a good chance of winning this fight and getting a submission. Ribas is also riding a 2-fight win streak. So there's a good chance that Ribas is going to win by submission. So that's going to be my choice. I'm going to choose Ribas to win the first fight by submission. Now, by Ribas winning this fight, it means that she goes up the rankings and then she could fight somebody like Michelle Waterson or Claudia Gadelha. Both of them dimey dimes. And I'm sure my girlfriend's going to like that. And I mean, Amanda Ibas is not bad looking either. So you could get another Amanda Ibas versus Paige Van Sam kind of fight. So looking forward to see where it leads if she wins this fight. All right, the second fight was Shane Burgos. Now, Shane, due to an injury to Kareem Vaduwu, which I'm saying that last name completely wrong, was left partnerless in Fight Island, and the UFC was forced to scrap the fight. You know, due to a 2-week COVID protocol, pretty much impossible for them to find another fighter to step up to the plate in such short notice. So what they did was they scrapped the fight probably to a later date, and they're going to give it to somebody from the undercard. And I had no research done on these guys. So if you guys want to see who's going to win that fight, I would suggest go to the Vegas odds and see who the underdog and the favorite is, and then choose your bet from there. But a third fight that's actually going to happen is Jessica Eye coming out of Las Vegas, Nevada with a record of 15-8 versus Joanne Calderwood coming out of Glasgow, Scotland with a record of 14-5. Now, Jessica Eye has been a top contender in the division, has some devastating kicks, likes to chop her opponents down from the start of the fight. She's a very sharp, aggressive fighter, but can be a slow starter. Not very accurate, but at least she can last all 5 rounds and has a veteran mentality and experience. On the other side, you have Joanne Calderwood, who is a fast starter, big kicks, accurate, but slows down as the rounds go by. She does get tired after 3 rounds and can be taken down quite a bit. Now, Joanne Calderwood's second to last fight was against Angela Lee. The reason I tell you guys this is because it went down to a split decision. I personally thought Angela Lee won the fight, but the judges gave it to Calderwood because she threw more strikes than Lee did. Now, Angela Lee reminds me of Jessica Ai. Only difference would be that Jessica Ai has more experience in the octagon, has the cardio to go all 5 rounds, and seems to ramp up the pace as the fight goes on. Joanne Calderwood is the opposite. She starts the fight fast and uses her kicks to keep distance, but as the fight goes on, Calderwood gets tired and starts to telegraph her shots, giving the opponent an opportunity to time the takedowns better and leading to a big disadvantage. So I'm going to choose Jessica Ai to win this fight, and what it means is that Jessica Ai wins this fight and moves up the rankings, and she would fight somebody like Vivian Arguello or Lauren Murphy, who is personally one of my favorites. Hopefully not Lauren Murphy. She is a contender for the title. If she's not, then she's fighting for the #1 contender fight. So I would most likely think she's going to fight Vivian Arguello. Now, the co-main event, which put this card over the top, when it was announced, I got way more excited about this fight. I thought the UFC was just putting a bunch of fighters that not a lot of people knew to get more eyes on them due to the Conor McGregor effect, where he has an event and a lot of people tend to buy the pay-per-view, and the people on the undercard get more exposure because Conor's fighting. And then they put this fight on and I was like, oh my God, now it's an actual buyable, solid card. Now, the fight I'm talking about is Michael Chandler coming out of the USA and making his UFC debut with a record of 21-5. Versus Dan Hooker from New Zealand with a record of 20-9. Now, Dan Hooker is a huge guy for the 155 division, making him a tough opponent, has great spatial awareness, accurate puncher who loves to brawl, and it helps that he has a very solid chin. Although he does like to brawl, he is a composed fighter, gauging the right time to get close and trade shots and knowing when to back off. Now, there's a reason why Dana White signed Michael Chandler. Right after Chandler's contract with Bellator was up, he came over to the UFC. He is a strong, explosive fighter, something Dana White loves. But the motto in the UFC is there is no warm-up fight. It's a win-win for the UFC because if he wins, he is a fighter they can market. But if he loses, they can say that the level of the UFC is higher than any other promotion. As far as the fight goes, you will see Michael Chandler come out of the gates with a lot of pressure and urgency. He can get frantic at times, trying to do too much, but is a decent striker and a very strong opponent. Now, the reason for this tactic is because most of Chandler's wins come in the first, second, or third round. The odds of him winning dramatically drop in the 4th or 5th round of a fight due to his lack of cardio and damage taken in earlier rounds. Going up against Dan Hooker is no easy task. Hooker likes to break down his opponents in the earlier rounds using his legs as primary weapons and helping him keep a good range. Unlike Chandler, he has an amazing chin and will trade shot for shot. Also has a good takedown defense and, if needed, a good ground defense. His cardio has carried him all 5 rounds in the last 2 fights, so he has a clear advantage as the fight goes on. He likes to ramp up the punishment as the fight goes on, but doesn't really possess knockout power. All in all, Dan Hooker looks like the better rounded fighter in this fight and has some clear advantages, but he will have to weather the storm in the early rounds. And let me tell you, this is going to be a very fast, very aggressive fight. You're going to see if Chandler could land a pretty hard shot, he could knock out Dan Hooker, but given that if you watch Dan Hooker fight in his last fight against Dustin Poirier, he can take it, but he can also dish it out. When he seems like he's in trouble, he will counterpunch and tends to earn the respect of the fighter that he's fighting because of his power. I wouldn't say he has knockout power, but it's enough to keep them at bay. But it's going to be an exciting fight. I wouldn't go to the bathroom. All right, but I'm going to pick Dan Hooker to win this fight. And the winner of this fight will most likely be the #1 contender for the fight against Khabib if he does decide to come back. But if Khabib doesn't come back, then whoever wins this fight will most likely fight the winner of Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor for the title itself. And what a great segue, right? Now we're talking about the main event, which we're all here to see, and we've all been itching to see Conor hit the ring back since last year. So it's been a whole year since we last saw Conor fight. And now you have Conor McGregor with a record of 22-4 out of Dublin, Ireland versus Dustin Poirier with a record of 26-6 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, this is Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, number 2. On one side, you have Conor McGregor, who likes to put pressure on his opponents the moment the fight starts. His motto has always been that he has no feel out stage in a fight and comes forward from the start. We are also dealing with a motivated Conor, as it has came to be known, as he said, due to COVID, he was forced to stay home and hone his craft. And from the looks of his Instagram, he isn't lying. He looks in tip-top shape and ready to resume his place at the top of the 155 division. On the other side, you have Dustin Poirier from his last fight against Dan Hooker. You can tell the new and improved Dustin likes to brawl and is a pretty good counterpuncher. But that's where I find a flaw in his plan. He allows his opponent to hit him to bait them in so he can land a hard counterpunch. Given that Conor possesses knockout power, I believe this will be his downfall. So the way you're going to see this fight go is pretty much the same way the fight went the first time. You're going to see Conor knock him out in the first or second round. Dustin is very hittable. And from the fight against Dan Hooker landed a shit ton of strikes on the head. And he doesn't possess that movement. He's kind of, let's go forward and see what happens. He's not punch, move to the side, or punch and back away. It's more like hit me and then I'll try to hit you harder and see if I can knock you out, which is a very dangerous game to play against Conor because unlike Hooker, Conor does possess that knockout power and I could see him knocking him out in the first or second round. So I'm going to pick Conor to win. Obviously, people are going to say I'm Conor fanboy. I love Conor McGregor. I like Conor because he's always motivated me to become better. And, what better way to get motivated than seeing somebody you look up to win a fight in spectacular fashion. So that's who I'm going to choose. For the UFC 257 card breakdown, Conor McGregor is going to win. A double champ is back. And hopefully it's a good night of fights. If you guys think that I was wrong somewhere, let me know in the comments and we can argue or debate, as I like to say. And you could give me the facts on who you think is going to win and why. And can't wait to see the fights. Before we move on, I want to give a huge shout out to All Things Made for helping me make these great shirts that say Only Podcast. I got the idea from a guy at the gym who had only gains, so I was like, what if I just change it? Because the original idea comes from OnlyFans, so I thought it was a play on words. It was funny and, it came out great. I love my t-shirts and there will be a website coming soon where you guys can purchase this t-shirt and other great t-shirts that have to do something with the podcast. I'm still thinking of creative ideas to give you guys a good product and a thing that you're proud to wear. So keep an eye out for that. But moving on to the NFL playoffs, last week I chose between the wild card rounds and I was right. I got 2 of them wrong. I thought the Titans were going to beat the Baltimore Ravens and I thought the Seahawks were going to beat the LA Rams. But here we are, not a bad record. I chose the other ones right. And I also chose the Cleveland Browns to win against the Steelers. So I might be doing something right here. But let's get started with the AFC. You got the Buffalo Bills going up against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if they can contain Lamar Jackson and stop the run and just tell him, if you want to beat us, you're going to have to beat us through the air. I think the Bills have a great chance at winning this fight. On the offense side, the Bills have a good chemistry between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. You see all these videos on TikTok and on the Bills Instagram page where they say like from the moment these guys met, they clicked. And that's so important because when you click with one of your wide receivers, then it's easier for you to know what he's thinking and what you're thinking, and then have this good chemistry where you can get a lot of completions done. And I see them scoring maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns. But if that's not the case, what if the Baltimore Ravens decide to eliminate Stephon Diggs from the equation? Josh Allen does possess a hell of an arm. I think he's way bigger than Patrick Mahomes. And just because Josh Allen was drafted into a bad situation when Mahomes was drafted into a good situation with Andy Reid, you didn't see Josh Allen become the quarterback that he is today. I think if Josh Allen would have gone to the Kansas City Chiefs, he would have became even a better and bigger superstar than Patrick Mahomes is. And I think he possesses a stronger throw. And, the last game against the Colts was pretty close, but I think they can learn from the mistakes. And I think if Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs can have good chemistry on the field, they're going to score a lot of touchdowns. And if the defense can contain Lamar Jackson, maybe play man on man, have somebody specifically there for Lamar Jackson, give him some cushion. That way you're not running past him and seeing him break out into these 40, 20-yard gains, and just kind of stay in front of him. You're going to limit his ability to run out of the pocket, and he's going to have to throw. And we know that Lamar Jackson is really inconsistent when it comes to throwing. He has some good throws, but it hasn't been his year this year. And there's a lot of recency bias when it comes to people thinking that the Ravens are this great team just because he won one playoff game. Just because he won one playoff game does not mean that his record is still not 1-2. But so I'm going to choose the Buffalo Bills to get a win over the Baltimore Ravens and move on to the conference championship game. On the other side, you got David versus Goliath. You got the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, versus the Browns, the Cleveland Browns, who amazingly got past the Steelers in the first round. And now they face their biggest task this year. The Chiefs didn't lose a lot of games this year, and it was because of their offense power and the schemes coming from Andy Reid. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the league, and you're going to need these kind of combinations to make it into the playoffs and have a long run. You need a good quarterback with a good coach that understands his quarterback and what that quarterback could do. Now, on the other side, you have Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, and Stefanski has had success with Baker Mayfield because he understands that too. The same chemistry that Patrick Mahomes has with Andy Reid, so does Stefanski and Baker Mayfield. Stefanski and his play callers know that Baker Mayfield, when he throws a lot, can tend to throw interceptions and incompletions. But if you give him a run game and take that pressure off of him, he can give you a couple incompletions and move those chains down the field. So I'm a diehard Bakers fan. I hate how the media went after him when he first got drafted. They all said he wasn't the number one pick. And I have disdain for that, because you don't know what this guy can do until he's out there and doing it. So the media jumping on him kind of put me on his side. And last week I chose the Browns and I was right. And this week I'm going to choose the Browns for the biggest upset in NFL history to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And the way they're going to do it is they're going to use Kareem Hunt and Chubb in the run game. And by doing that, they're going to limit how long Patrick Mahomes is going to be on the field. And if you can keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, that means that they have a pretty good chance at scoring a couple touchdowns. And, it's going to be a close game. And in order for the Browns to win, they're going to have to score more than 30 points and limit the Chiefs to at least 20 points. And that's no easy task, given that they have Travis Kelce and the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill on the other side, and a lot of dynamic players that Patrick Mahomes could connect to. But that's what I'm going to choose. On the FC side, I'm choosing the Browns to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm choosing the Bills to beat the Baltimore Ravens. And on the other side, I'm going to start with the LA Rams versus the Green Bay Packers. You got the best defense in the NFL versus the best offense in the NFL. And you got Aaron Donald with great pass rush who can make it a very long game for Aaron Rodgers. And on the wide receiver end, the Green Bay Packers are very dependent on Devontae Adams. If you look at the stats, Aaron Rodgers has connected with Devontae Adams a lot this season. That's his number one receiver, his go-to guy. And if you could take that away, then he has to resort to getting to the other wide receivers. And it's possible to take Devontae Adams away from Aaron Rodgers when you put Jalen Ramsey on him. Jalen Ramsey, when put on Metcalf on the last game against the Seahawks, limited him to like 30 yards and like 3 catches, when Metcalf has been the go-to guy for Russell Wilson. So I can see that helping the Rams edge out a win. But on the other side, on the offense side of the LA Rams, they have no quarterback. Jared Goff broke his thumb or something, and now they got the backup quarterback, and that dramatically drops their percentage of if they're going to win this game or not. When you have to answer every time Aaron Rodgers scores and the backup quarterback needs to learn and find this chemistry with the wide receivers, it's going to be a hard task for the LA Rams to get any points on the board. But you're going to see them try to run a lot and limit, just like the Browns versus the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to try to limit how long Aaron Rodgers is out on the field. The whole thing about Aaron Rodgers winning because it's going to be cold is horseshit. These guys are there to win a football game. So whether it's cold, hot, raining, snowing, these guys are going to go out and try to perform. So saying like, oh, the only reason Aaron Rodgers is going to win because it's going to be cold in Lambeau Field, y'all can lick an asshole. I don't believe that at all. But as much as I hate to say it, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win this game. They're going to win this game and move on to the conference championship. And, it's going to be short lived because we all know what happens to the Green Bay Packers when they get to the NFC championship. They crumble under the pressure. It's not their night. And whatever team they're facing tends to win. It's been like that for a couple years now. And everybody says the Green Bay Packers are a pretty good team, but the moment they get to the end of the playoffs, one game away from the Super Bowl, they tend to crumble under the pressure, and Aaron Rodgers just probably doesn't have it anymore. I know he has an MVP season, and I'm just saying all this because I hate the Packers, but I'm trying to base this argument on fact and not emotion. And it's proven that when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and the conference championship, he tends to lose more than he wins. But for this divisional round, he's going to beat the LA Rams. And he got lucky that Jared Goff broke his thumb. All right, so for the last matchup in the divisional playoffs, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Saints. And obviously, you don't have to guess who I'm going to choose. There's a reason why the Tom Brady shirt is out and about in my podcast studio. But I like Tom Brady because he's a source of motivation. He's the little guy. He was the guy who wasn't the strongest, the fastest, or the most accurate at the combine and was chosen in the later rounds of the draft. And he came out of the draft with the biggest chip on his shoulder to prove everybody wrong. And he actually did it, Like, there's not a lot of stories that you could look at and say, wow, that guy actually set out to be the greatest and became the greatest. After 8 visits to the Super Bowl, 6 Super Bowl wins, it's kind of hard to bet against Tom Brady. And the reason I think he's going to win not only the divisional round and the conference champion and the Super Bowl this year is because there's a huge chip on this guy's shoulder. Superstars like Conor McGregor, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, they've been here, they've done that, they've won the championships. They need external motivations to push them and to succeed again and again after championship after championship. And, looking back, there was a championship that Tom Brady won where he was suspended because of Deflategate. And he was suspended for 4 years at the beginning of the season. And I think the chip he had on that shoulder that year was that he wanted Roger Goodell to give him the Lombardi trophy at the end of the season. And he actually achieved it. There's this picture perfect moment where Roger Goodell gives him the Lombardi trophy. And, I think he's going to do that again. But this chip this time around is to prove that Bill Belichick wasn't as big as a part as everybody thinks when it comes to him winning the Super Bowls. I think in his mind, he has this vision of him holding up the Lombardi trophy in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform and saying, look, I did it without you. And to prove everybody that he was the biggest reason why the Patriots won 6 championships. And to prove them that, hey, maybe you shouldn't let me go. Maybe you should have put some pieces around me. But, the Saints did beat them twice in the regular season. And third time tends to be not the charm in the NFL. Most teams that have won 2 games in the regular season, when it comes to the playoffs and they face for the third time, they're like 21-0 or 21-9 or some shit like that. So it's not looking good for Tom Brady, but you never bet against Tom Brady. He has a lot of firepower when it comes to his offense. Him and Antonio Brown, their chemistry is through the roof. And this team got hot at the right time. Everything was clicking. People weren't as injured. And Tom Brady, with his experience in these big moments, can edge out a win. And if you look back at previous years, you look at the Saints and Drew Brees, and they tend to crumble when it comes to these high-profile games. They complained about a call against the Rams that was pass interference, and they made such a big stink about it for a whole year. And then against the Minnesota Vikings, where Stephon Diggs just ran it to win the game at the end of the fourth quarter. something breaks down in the playoffs when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, and I could see that happening against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, do they have a lot of firepower? Yes, they do. But if you look at their last playoff game against the Bears, they barely scored anything, and the Bears aren't that good. So something there is not clicking right, and that to me is a sure sign that they're not going to be clicking in the next game. It's not like a switch that you could flip and be like, all right, we're playing Tom Brady. Now let's start scoring points. Like something there is not, maybe it's the play calls, maybe it's confusion. Maybe it's Drew Brees just not making the right calls, but hopefully the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could get a couple interceptions and, score a couple points and tighten up their defense because they did give up a lot of yardage and a lot of points when it came to playing against the Washington football team. So if they can tighten up that defense and let Tom Brady do Tom Brady shit, we're going to the conference championship against the Packers. And I give Tom Brady a pretty good chance against the Packers. They did beat him in the regular season. And there's something about the knowing that you have a pretty good game plan that could beat your opponent. And, it gives, if Tom Brady makes it to the conference championship, it's like smelling blood for a shark. He's going to attack. He's going to go. And he knows that he's one win away from getting to the Super Bowl and actually beating whoever makes it to the Super Bowl from the other side. So we'll see what happens. If you guys think that any of the teams I chose are wrong, please let me know. Again, just to reiterate who I think is going to win. In the AFC side, you got the Bills over the Baltimore Ravens, the Browns over the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't believe I'm saying that. And on the NFC side, you got the Green Bay Packers over the LA Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. And that will be your conference championship. And I will give you guys my picks next week on that. And I'm probably running out of time right now. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting. Hopefully some of you guys agree with what I picked today. And if you don't, let me know in the comments down below. I would gladly debate with you about why you think I'm wrong and why I think you're wrong. And just thank you guys for all the views. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. I'm terrible at ending these fucking things. All right.